Spring 1942. As World War II entered its most brutal phase, the United States faced a crisis both military and social. In Europe, German forces were sweeping across the continent. In the Pacific, Japan was dominating the seas and islands. While the nation rallied around the ideals of freedom and democracy, millions of Black Americans were still treated as second-class citizens, denied full voting rights, barred from white-only restaurants, prohibited from attending white schools, and segregated in the military into service units, truck driving, or labor roles. However, a movement called Double Victory began to stir within the African American community. Victory over fascism abroad, and victory over racial discrimination at home. Tens of thousands of Black youths volunteered for military service, eager to fight and prove their patriotism and capabilities. Against this backdrop, the U.S. War Department had to expand its armored forces. After Germany's Blitzkrieg campaign in 1940, tanks had become a symbol of modern warfare. The U.S. Army was hastily forming independent tank battalions to support infantry, and for the first time, a fully Black tank unit was approved, the 761st Tank Battalion. The decision, signed on March 1, 1942, marked a significant milestone, not because it reflected social progress, but as a political compromise under public pressure. Many generals opposed it, claiming Black men lacked the discipline or intellect to operate tanks. Yet Secretary of War Henry Stimson, pressed by Congress and the Black press, reluctantly approved the experiment. Training took place at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, a hot, humid region teeming with mosquitoes and steeped in daily racial segregation. When the first Black soldiers of the 761st arrived, they were confined to separate barracks, mess halls, bathrooms, and even chapels. Signs reading "whites only" and "colored" were everywhere outside the camp gates. Amid this environment, a key figure emerged to shape their destiny: Lieutenant Colonel Paul L. Bates, appointed as the battalion's first commander. Bates was a young white officer with experience in the newly formed armored forces, known for his strictness and principles. Unlike many of his peers, he refused to demean soldiers because of their race. Bates treated his men like any other unit, demanding, rigorous, and absolutely fair. At the first inspection, he declared, "There are no white or Black soldiers here. There are only tankers, and tankers must fight." Under this philosophy, Bates began a 2.5-year training program, longer than most armored units. They started on light M5 Stuart tanks, later moving to the M4 Sherman, America's main battle tank in Belgium. Early exercises included driving, firing the 75mm gun, engine maintenance, coordination with infantry, long marches, and live fire drills. Lacking sufficient equipment and resources, they often improvised targets and repaired tanks using scrap parts. Yet in these months, they developed unparalleled technical skill and discipline. Many officers who initially observed them out of curiosity eventually admitted that the 761st was one of the best trained units in the Army. Bates not only trained their bodies, but also their will. He knew that even one mistake could be attributed to the entire race. Discipline was absolute. No drinking in the barracks, no arguing with superiors, no skipping drills, even in rain or minor illness. Soldiers both respected and feared him, understanding that only by meeting Bates's high standards could they earn the chance to see combat and prove they were true American soldiers. One soldier, Sergeant Reuben Rivers, who later became legendary, said, "We were not just fighting Hitler. We were fighting to prove we were men, that we were American citizens." During training, the battalion adopted the motto, "Come out fighting," with the emblem of a Black Panther lunging forward on a golden background, symbolizing strength, agility, and an indomitable spirit. This gave rise to the nickname Black Panthers, initially internal, but later etched into history. Under Bates's command, the unit excelled in tactical exercises and was declared combat-ready by mid-1944. Yet readiness did not guarantee deployment. High Command hesitated to send an all-Black unit to the European front. Many senior officers feared that if the 761st failed, public opinion would interpret it as proof of Black Americans' military inadequacy. While awaiting orders, the 761st endured not only the tedium of prolonged training, but also scorn from white soldiers. They were barred from officers' clubs, refused service in restaurants, and, while marching through southern towns, often pelted with stones or insulted. Yet adversity only fueled their determination. They vowed that when given the chance, they would not only defeat the enemy, but compel America to take notice. September 1944 brought that opportunity. As General George S. Patton led the Third Army into France during the Lorraine campaign, he lacked armored support for infantry. Second Corps Command recommended the 761st, a well-trained black unit that had never seen combat. Initially, Patton hesitated, admitting in his memoirs that he had no confidence in black soldiers' combat ability. But after reviewing their training record, he changed his mind and accepted the 761st into his formation. At their first meeting in Mourmelon-le-Grand, France, Patton addressed the unit with words that became legendary. "Men, you are the first Negro tankers to ever fight in the American army. I would never have asked for you if you weren't good. I have nothing but the best in my army. I don't care what color you are, as long as you can kill Germans." With that, doubts were temporarily set aside. By late October 1944, the battalion moved to the front lines, ready for their first true test in history. The battle in Lorraine, France, facing the formidable German armored forces that had struck fear across Europe. But before the first shot was fired, consider the path they had traveled. From youth marginalized by society, trained under harsh conditions, isolated in the prejudiced barracks of the Deep South, they transformed humiliation into resilience, skepticism into strength. They were not born into a fair society, but they were forged in fire, and that fire produced one of the most formidable tank units of WW2, Black Panthers, and the name represents not only mechanical power, but the roar of a generation of black soldiers, demanding recognition as true Americans in arms. Autumn 1944. The skies over France were still darkened by the smoke of Allied bombing. Across fields churned by tank treads, the echoes of artillery never ceased. After the Normandy campaign and the liberation of Paris, the U.S. Army continued its push eastward, toward the German border. But the deeper they advanced, the fiercer Nazi resistance became. In Lorraine, eastern France, German forces had established dense defensive lines, with mines, anti-tank guns, machine gun nests, and camouflaged ambushes among the ruins of villages. It was here that the 761st Tank Battalion, the U.S. Army's first black tank unit, would enter its first true combat. In early October 1944, the battalion was moved to Mourmelon-le-Grand, France, to prepare for attachment to the 26th Infantry Division of General George S. Patton's Third Army. They marched through muddy roads, dense forests, and recently liberated towns, cheered by French civilians who did not realize these tank crews were the first black Americans ever to reach Europe. To the locals, they were simply liberators. But for the 761st, this was a chance to prove their worth, not only to the world, but to the very country that had once rejected them. At the field headquarters, Patton appeared in his signature uniform, a shining silver pistol at his side. Standing before hundreds of 761st soldiers, his voice rang out cold and commanding. "Men, you are the first Negro tankers to ever fight in the American Army. I have chosen you because I know you are good. You will make history, and you will make it right now." With these words, he both encouraged and tested them. Patton was notorious for his strictness, demanding speed, discipline, and absolute courage. The 761st knew that failure would not only reflect on themselves, but on millions of black Americans at home, branding them as unfit for combat. The pressure weighed, heavier than any German 88 mm artillery. November 7, 1944, the 761st received orders to attack the area of Morville-le-Vicq in northeastern France. Cold rain turned the dirt roads into thick mud, and their 30-ton Sherman tanks struggled to advance even a few kilometers per hour. The ground was so soft that many vehicles had to be winched out of ruts. Ahead, German forces had fortified villages, turning houses into bunkers and ditches into trenches. The dreaded 80mm guns lurked in the trees. As soon as the battle began, Lieutenant Daniel Adams's platoon walked into an ambush. 3 Shermans were set ablaze, crews barely escaping before turrets exploded. But rather than retreat, the remaining 761st tanks spread out, firing relentlessly into machine gun positions, clearing paths for the infantry. Amid smoke, fire, and pelting rain, the Black Panthers fought their first real battle, and they fought as if the fate of their unit depended on it. Among the heroes that day was Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers, commanding Tank B-32. Leading an assault across a narrow embankment, His tank hit a mine and exploded violently. A steel fragment pierced his leg, blood streaming freely. Medics urged him to evacuate, but Rivers stared straight ahead. "I'm not going anywhere. We've got Germans to fight." He bandaged his leg, climbed back into his tank, and continued leading combat for the next 2 days. His courage inspired the entire battalion. Under German artillery fire, Reuben Rivers became the living symbol of the 761st's indomitable spirit, unyielding, fearless, and relentless. In the following days, the 761st and the 26th Infantry Division captured Vic-sur-Seille, Morville, Boulogne, and Bourg-Altrove, clearing houses, destroying machine gun nests and opening paths for infantry. Despite heavy losses, destroyed tanks, and fallen crews, they maintained formation and morale. Patton later wrote in his diary, "The 761st fought magnificently. No unit has done better, but glory came at a cost." On November 19, 1944, during the attack on Bourg-Altrove, Rivers' tank was ambushed. German 80mm fire struck the flank, setting the vehicle ablaze. Though ordered to retreat, Rivers covered his comrades' withdrawal before the tank exploded. He perished on the spot. Decades later, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the United States' highest military decoration, for his unwavering bravery. After Lorraine, the 761st advanced into Belgium and Luxembourg, facing Germany's last major counterattack, the Battle of the Bulge. From late November to mid-December 1944, they fought relentlessly in terrible weather, sleet, heavy snow, and mud that immobilized tanks. They slept in freezing vehicles, subsisted on meager rations, and repaired tanks in the midst of battle. Yet no one abandoned their post. At night, they navigated by compass and paper maps, even under enemy fire, maintaining formation. When Germany's Ardennes counteroffensive erupted in mid-December, the 761st was thrown into the line alongside veteran white units to plug defensive gaps. They faced Tiger and Panther tanks, machines superior to Sherman's in both armor and firepower. In response, 761st crews developed cat hunting tactics. One tank would draw fire from a distance while 2 others flanked and struck the weaker side or rear armor of German tanks. Using this method, they destroyed dozens of enemy vehicles, astonishing German commanders with their tactical skill. By early 1945, with snow melting, the 761st had advanced through Belgium and Luxembourg into Germany, liberating towns, escorting POWs, and evacuating civilians from combat zones. Fierce urban battles occurred in Tille, La Roche-en-Ardennes, and Koblenz, where they continued to face German tanks. Propaganda had claimed black soldiers couldn't shoot or feared snow, yet in 183 consecutive days of combat, they never retreated from their objectives. Post-war German intelligence reports confirmed the black American tank units fought in a highly organized manner, never panicked, moved skillfully, and fired accurately. For them, the 761st was not just a new adversary, it was proof of change within the U.S. Army itself. As the war drew to a close, the 761st's responsibilities expanded, escorting refugees, guarding fuel depots, and sweeping retreating German forces. In May 1945, they discovered Gunskirchen, a subcamp of Mauthausen concentration camp, where thousands of Jewish prisoners were left to starve. The scene stunned the black soldiers. Piles of corpses, survivors reduced to skin and bones, eyes hollow, trembling in fear. They immediately distributed food and water and called for medical aid. One former prisoner later recalled, "I will never forget the first black American soldiers who entered that camp. To us, they were angels." These images, humanity amidst war, embodied the ideals for which the 761st fought: freedom, justice, and dignity. When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the Black Panthers had traveled over 1,600 kilometers from eastern France to the Austrian border, fighting 183 consecutive days, an extraordinary feat in the U.S. Army. Despite heavy losses, their morale remained unbroken. One officer wrote in the final report, "They never failed a mission, never. Amid the ruins of Europe, they sought no glory. They only knew they had fulfilled the oath of enlistment, come out fighting. They had gone out fighting, and they had won." From men once deemed unfit to operate tanks, they became warriors respected even by their enemies. The Shermans bearing the Black Panther emblem did not just roll across Lorraine, the Ardennes, and Austria. They rolled across the invisible line between prejudice and recognition. By June 1945, when the battalion was ordered to withdraw from Europe, hundreds of small graves marked the sacrifice of black soldiers across France and Germany. Men who fell without knowing their country still did not fully treat them as equals. Yet from those graves emerged a legacy proving that courage and fighting spirit know no color. In the history of modern warfare, few units have waged two battles simultaneously, one against the enemy on the battlefield and the other against the prejudices of their own homeland. Yet the Black Panthers, 761st Tank Battalion, did just that for 183 consecutive days, from the muddy fields of Lorraine to the distant borders of Austria. 6 months straight without a single day off or rotation. 6 months where each dawn was a promise of survival, and each nightfall a simple gratitude. They were still breathing. After their first battle at Morville-le-Vicq, the battalion was no longer green. They had tasted smoke and fire, lost comrades, and understood that war was not just about glory, but the endurance of every hour. Even the notoriously stern Patton sent a commendation and ordered the division to keep the 761st in the lead assault formation. From then on, the Black Panthers were continuously deployed from one battle to another as a rapid response spearhead, specializing in breaking through German defenses in the most difficult terrain. By December 1944, snow began to blanket the Ardennes. Winter arrived with its most ruthless weapon, bitter cold. These black soldiers, many from the American South, had never experienced temperatures far below freezing. They lacked insulated coats, snow boots, and windproof tents that other units had. Yet orders were orders. The 761st marched through snow-laden nights, carrying ammunition, fuel, and their heavy Shermans. Engines sometimes froze, requiring fires beneath tanks to start. Many suffered frostbite, cracked skin, and bleeding lips, but no one abandoned their position. On the northern front, the Germans launched a sudden counteroffensive, the Battle of the Bulge. Dozens of panzer divisions poured through the Ardennes, smashing the thin Allied lines. Amid the chaos, Patton ordered the Third Army to pivot 90 degrees north to plug the gap. Through fleeing civilians and burned-out vehicles, the 761st advanced against the tide. They were one of the few units capable of rapid mobility under snow and heavy fire. On December 18th, they were assigned to defend Tillet, a small town in Luxembourg. Most of the area was under German control, with artillery and mortars blocking every road. Arriving without detailed maps or communication with the flanking infantry, only a compass and the sound of gunfire, they formed a defensive circle using tanks as barriers, with main guns facing outward. All night they endured continuous bombardment. Whenever a tank was hit, the remaining crews advanced to fill the gap. By morning, Tillet was still in their hands. In the following days, the 761st was ordered to counterattack toward Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne Division was surrounded. They advanced with the 4th Armored Division through forests, crossing frozen rivers, confronting German Panther tanks, the first direct clash between the Black Panthers and the German Panthers. Though the German tanks were superior in firepower and armor, the 761st had learned to hunt the big cats. They organized in 3 tank groups, 1 tank drawing fire, 2 flanking. This tactic bewildered the enemy, destroying many Panthers within a few volleys. At Moyenvic, Lieutenant John Long's tank was hit and set ablaze. Instead of retreating, he jumped out, manned the M2 Browning on the turret, and fired to cover his crew's escape. Severely wounded, he refused to leave until his entire platoon had withdrawn safely. When carried back, he simply said, "Tell the boys to keep fighting. That's what we came for." Those words became an unofficial motto for the battalion. Through mud, snow, and gunfire, they pressed onward. By early 1945, the front had shifted into Germany. During the Allied crossing of the Rhine, the 761st attacked along the southern corridor, advancing through Saarlautern, Koblenz, and Bavaria. Each day, they covered 15 to 20 kilometers while fighting, repairing vehicles, resupplying, and burying comrades. Reports confirmed that the 761st never retreated once during this phase, a rarity for any armored unit. Death became a familiar companion. Some days they lost 3 crews in just hours. Survivors collected helmets, journals, and dog tags, carefully packing them to send home. In brief moments of rest, they wrote letters, hands greasy from machinery, words shaky and smeared. Mother, I'm okay. It's freezing here, but I'm not afraid. I'm fighting like Dad taught me. Many letters never reached home, buried in Ardennes snow or destroyed in burning Shermans, but they stood as proof of faith. This brutal war was meaningful. By March 1945, the 761st had penetrated deep into Germany, liberating towns like Steinbach, Bayreuth, and Gunskirchen and rural areas under occupation. In each village, they confronted machine gun nests in homes and basements. They not only fought but negotiated, evacuated civilians, and rescued children from combat zones. Soldiers once considered second class were now protectors of thousands of European lives. On May 4, 1945, near Linz, Austria, Company C discovered the Gunskirchen concentration camp. No one was prepared for the scene. Thousands of Jewish prisoners, many dead or near death. No gunfire, only the stench of death and weak breaths. The 761st immediately distributed food, water, and medicine, even as they were starving themselves. One soldier wrote in his diary, "I never thought I would see anything like this. We came to Europe to fight, but today we came to save lives." That moment became etched in the battalion's memory, not just a military victory, but a triumph of humanity. 3 days later, Nazi Germany surrendered. War was over. In a temporary Austrian camp, the 761st soldiers sat around small fires, gazing at distant mountains. No cheering, only silent removal of helmets to honor the fallen. From November 1944 to May 1945, the battalion had crossed 7 countries, fought 183 consecutive days, destroyed or disabled over 130 tanks, more than 250 artillery pieces, and thousands of German troops. They earned 11 Silver Stars, 69 Bronze Stars, and over 300 Purple Hearts. Yet upon returning to the U.S., there was no parade. No collective medal ceremony, no presidential commendation. In war bulletins, the name 761st appeared briefly, if at all. They were quietly discharged, returning to civilian life under the ever-present whites-only signs of the South. History, however, did not forget them. Years later, as America revisited its past, stories of the Black Panthers emerged, from fellow veterans, French civilians, and Jewish survivors of Gunskirchen. Gradually, it became clear that these forgotten soldiers had played a pivotal role in Europe's victory. In 1978, the 761st Tank Battalion was formally awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the highest honor for a military unit. At the ceremony, silver-haired, stooped veterans stood in old uniforms. One whispered, "We waited a long time for this, but we always knew we earned it." As lights illuminated the Black Panther emblem on a gold background, the battalion's logo, the audience rose in applause. Not just for honor, but for the simple truth they proved: courage has no color, and a soldier's honor is measured by actions alone. In the chronicles of warfare, those 183 days were not merely a series of campaigns. They were a journey from darkness into light. From men once excluded from battle, they became indispensable warriors. From those rejected, they became legends. And though the world changed, the image of Sherman's bearing the Black Panther emblem continues to roll through memory, symbols of perseverance, pride, and an unquenchable thirst for freedom. Come out fighting. This was not just a wartime oath, it was the enduring legacy the 761st left behind, for all people and nations who have ever fought to be recognized. When the final shots of World War II rang out across Austria and Germany, the numbers alone could not tell the full story. For the 761st Tank Battalion, 183 consecutive days of combat left not only scars on the battlefield, but also invisible wounds on the hearts of every soldier. They lost comrades, friends, and faced the cold indifference of the homeland where they were born. The toll on lives and spirit was immense. Yet the achievements they earned, even if not immediately recognized, proved that the Black Panthers were an exceptional and resilient military force. Of the more than 700 men who fought, the 761st lost 65 soldiers. While not the largest loss compared to other armored divisions of the same period, each name carried a story of tragedy and heroism. They sacrificed not for medals or accolades, but for their fellow soldiers, for their mission, and for the belief that justice and freedom were worth defending. Hundreds more were wounded, many carrying lifelong injuries, from burn scars to psychological trauma. During the grueling days in the Ardennes, constantly moving through snowstorms and under fire, many endured excruciating pain without immediate medical care. simply continuing to drive their Shermans to protect their platoons. Material losses were also significant. The battalion lost over 130 Sherman tanks and hundreds of support vehicles destroyed or severely damaged. Each Sherman was not only a war machine, but a home, a shelter, and a shield for its crew. When a Sherman went up in flames, the crew had to jump into enemy fire, sometimes taking hours or an entire day before returning to combat. Yet these losses did not slow the battalion's advance. They continually replaced vehicles, repaired them in the field, or restructured crews, maintaining a relentless pace. Their adaptability and extraordinary resilience made the 761st an indispensable and highly mobile unit in critical battles. In terms of combat record, the 761st Tank Battalion left a deep mark in Allied military reports. They participated in over 300 engagements, many being critical strikes into the heart of German defenses. Reports documented that the battalion destroyed or damaged over 130 German tanks, 250 artillery pieces, thousands of vehicles and equipment, and helped liberate thousands of civilians. They spearheaded multiple campaigns, from Lorraine and the Ardennes to the Rhine and southern Germany and Austria, facing German Panthers, Tigers, and Ferdinand assault guns. One of the most notable battles showcasing the 761st's skill and bravery was at Moyenvik and Tillet, where they faced heavy artillery, German heavy tanks, and fortified positions. Platoon A under Lieutenant John Long executed a 3-tank tactic. 1 tank drew enemy fire while 2 flanked. This maneuver confused the enemy, destroying multiple Panthers. This not only saved many comrades but disrupted German attack plans, contributing to the division's overall success. Throughout the campaign, crews also faced non-combat but equally dangerous tasks, rescuing civilians, evacuating concentration camp prisoners, and supporting other Allied forces under extreme weather. When they liberated Gunskirchen, many were shocked by the horrific scenes, thousands of emaciated, sick, starving prisoners. The 761st immediately distributed food, medicine, and medical care while protecting the survivors from remaining SS forces. This humanitarian action saved hundreds of lives and cemented the 761st as a symbol of courage and humanity in war. Individual achievements were also remarkable. The battalion earned 11 Silver Stars, 69 Bronze Stars, and over 300 Purple Hearts, reflecting the dedication of each soldier, willing to risk their lives to complete missions. Many crews worked 48 to 72 hours straight under enemy fire, lacking sleep and food. Their feats were documented in military reports and remembered by Allied veterans who witnessed the 761st rolling like an unstoppable storm. Yet, these accomplishments did not immediately earn recognition. Even after the war ended and Europe breathed a sigh of relief, these black soldiers faced racial discrimination in the U.S. There were no grand parades, no national press honors. Many returned to the segregated South, still confronted with whites-only signs, separated seating in restaurants, hotels, and public transportation. Their heroic deeds in Europe remained largely invisible to the American public. It was not until 1978, 3 decades after the war, that the 761st Tank Battalion was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the highest honor for a U.S. military unit. At a White House ceremony, silver-haired veterans stood in old uniforms, the Black Panther emblem gleaming on their chests. This formal recognition honored their courage, combat skill, and silent sacrifices. One veteran said, "We waited a long time for this, but we always knew we earned it." In addition to the unit award, many individuals received Silver Stars, Bronze Stars, and Purple Hearts, with repeated mentions in combat reports for bravery and tactical skill. Their reputation gradually spread, not only within the military but across American society, becoming a symbol of overcoming racial prejudice and affirming human value. The 761st veterans inspired future generations, especially black soldiers in the U.S. Army. They proved that courage, talent, and teamwork are not determined by race or origin. Later training programs often cited the 761st's exemplary battles for lessons in breakthrough tactics, mobility, and crew coordination. In popular culture, the story of the Black Panthers appears in books, documentaries, and museum exhibitions, reminding the public of a once-forgotten yet proud chapter of history. Recognition extended further as the U.S. gradually dismantled racial barriers in the military and society. The 761st became a symbol of change, proving that courage and personal sacrifice could challenge prejudice. They fought not only for freedom in Europe, but also, indirectly, for equality at home. Their legacy, both military and societal, remains relevant today. Looking back, the 183 days of continuous combat, brutal battles, hundreds of fallen comrades, thousands of destroyed enemy vehicles, and civilian rescue operations were more than statistics. They were proof of an extraordinary unit spirit, courage overcoming prejudice, and the triumph of human dignity amid violence and injustice. The 761st Tank Battalion, the Black Panthers, carved their name into history, not only as skilled warriors but as symbols of perseverance, justice, and humanity. Their stories, though recognized late, live on in the memories of those who fought, those they saved, and generations who learned from them. They are living proof of a simple yet profound truth. Valor knows no color. Once forgotten, the 761st Tank Battalion's honor is now secure, and their lessons remain an enduring inspiration. Silent sacrifice, teamwork, and courage can change the world. When World War II ended, the soldiers of the 761st Tank Battalion, the Black Panthers, returned home, carrying physical wounds, haunting memories of the battlefield, but also a profound sense of pride. Though they had fought bravely across Europe, breaking through the German defenses and helping liberate thousands of civilians, their story remained largely forgotten in the official history of the United States for many years. Racial discrimination at home meant that many were not welcomed as heroes, and their combat achievements were often mentioned only in military reports or passed down through oral stories within the African American community. However, the legacy of the 761st goes far beyond medals or accolades, spanning two major realms, military and social. Militarily, the 761st Tank Battalion set new standards in mobility, crew coordination, and combat tactics under extreme conditions. They proved that a small, well-trained unit led by skilled officers could decisively influence the battlefield. Their experiences were documented and became reference material for future armored units. Breakthrough tactics, terrain utilization, and coordination between tanks, infantry, and artillery became valuable lessons for the U.S. Army for decades. Many 761st veterans, after leaving the service, taught at military academies, passing on practical experience and the unique tactics they employed during 183 consecutive days of combat in Europe. Socially, the 761st's legacy carries profound symbolic weight as a testament to overcoming prejudice and fighting for equality. In a time when the U.S. Army was still segregated and black units were often relegated to logistics or base security, the 761st proved that courage, skill, and discipline know no color. Their success on the battlefield helped shift perceptions within the military and laid the groundwork for desegregation after the war. When President Harry Truman issued Executive Order 9981 in 1948, paving the way for integrated military units, the contributions of the 761st played a significant role in demonstrating the talent and capability of black soldiers. Their legacy also inspired later generations, both in the military and civilian life. Many veterans became teachers, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, carrying forward the discipline, courage, and pride learned on the battlefield. The story of the Black Panthers has been told through books, documentaries, museum exhibitions, and educational programs, showing young Americans that African Americans fought for their country even when denied fairness, and that valor does not wait for recognition. A significant part of their cultural legacy is the Black Panther emblem. More than just a military insignia, it became a symbol of strength, determination, and the ability to overcome adversity. The image appeared on tanks, uniforms, and commemorative medals, gradually becoming a symbol for movements against racial discrimination in both the military and American society. In the post-war years, youth groups, community organizations, and social leaders drew inspiration from the Black Panther, reminding people of courage and an uncompromising spirit in the face of injustice. The 761st also left a lasting lesson in teamwork and silent sacrifice. On the battlefield, they faced severe challenges: broken tanks, fuel shortages, artillery storms, and dangerous ambushes. Yet they maintained discipline, supported one another, and completed missions despite losses and suffering. Lessons of loyalty, responsibility, and crew coordination became treasured values, cited by both the military and society as standards of combat spirit and human character. Their legacy extends beyond history and military achievements to political and social significance. Members of the 761st returned to a segregated America, yet their combat story gradually became proof that equality and recognition must be matched by action. Black soldiers fought for their country, helped liberate Europe from fascism, and simultaneously posed the question of social justice at home. The delayed recognition, such as the Presidential Unit Citation in 1978, was not only an acknowledgement but also a reminder that justice, though delayed, ultimately prevails. In the years following the war, the 761st's legacy was amplified through documentaries, books, and exhibitions. Films like The Liberators and exhibits at the National Museum of African American History and Culture and the National World War II Museum brought their story closer to the public. These portrayals helped new generations understand that battlefield success depends not just on tactics or weapons, but on courage, determination, and overcoming prejudice. Stories of Sherman crews, night battles in the Ardennes, and civilian rescue efforts became invaluable teaching materials about civic responsibility, bravery, and social duty. Another aspect of their legacy lies in its influence on the modern U.S. Army. Many officers and tank crews were later trained based on the 761st's combat experience, especially in mobile, breakthrough operations, and combined arms coordination. The concept of leveraging terrain, coordinating effectively, and advancing relentlessly became a classic lesson in modern warfare. Armored training programs at Fort Knox and other military academies still cite the 761st's battles as examples of tactics and combat spirit. Historically, the 761st also broke racial barriers in the military and American society. Their achievements helped change the Department of Defense's perceptions, promoted integration policies, and created opportunities for black soldiers in other units. They proved that talent, courage, and loyalty cannot be measured by skin color. Their legacy is thus not only a story of combat, but also a reminder of the value of fairness and human rights. The spiritual legacy of the 761st inspired later movements. From the civil rights movement in the 1960s to educational and military initiatives, the Black Panther symbol evoked perseverance, courage, and an unyielding fighting spirit in the face of injustice. Stories of their victories and sacrifices taught younger generations that obstacles, whether prejudice, discrimination, or violence, can be overcome through willpower and steadfast action. Today, the legacy of the 761st Tank Battalion lives not just in history books or museum exhibits, but in the spirit of the U.S. Army, in African American cultural memory, and in the collective consciousness of the nation. They prove that courage and combat spirit can change both the course of war and societal perception. Late recognition did not diminish their achievements. Instead, it highlighted the patience and extraordinary character of those who fought, sacrificed, and waited for justice. The 761st Tank Battalion, Black Panthers, stands as proof that sacrifice, courage, and teamwork can overcome all prejudice, and that history is not only about battles but about human character, justice, and equality. Their legacy continues to inspire all who seek to fight, not only on the battlefield but in life, to defend justice, freedom, and human dignity. Their once forgotten feats have now become a timeless symbol of bravery, perseverance, and human value, affirming that valor knows no color, a vivid, enduring lesson for generations to come.